Hi, everyone. Welcome to On the Hook, the official YellowPike Media podcast. My name is Rick. I'll be your host. And with me is Lindsay, also from YellowPike. Hi, Lindsay. How are you today?
I'm doing really well, Rick. What about yourself?
I'm doing pretty well. Today, we're going to be talking about something that Lindsay and I spend most of our time doing as the influencer team here at YellowPike. The evolving world of social media, this and influencers. This may be something we know a little bit about. But we have a guest today who knows a lot about it, and that is our very own founder and CEO, Keith Pape, who will be joining us today. So lots to talk about with this subject, I think, right now. There's so much going on in the social media influencer space with influencer marketing, even down to breaking news that happened just before we came on to record this podcast that we'll get to later on. But I think a really good place for us to start would be for you, Keith, to kind of give us sort of a background in the space. Tell us the evolution a little bit of influencer marketing and social media influencers. Where did it kind of come from and where are we going?
I don't know if I can tell you the actual origins. I'm not that smart, but I can certainly tell you where it came from my point of view, which kind of was from on the video game side, is my introduction always came from Hollywood. Everyone I knew, I don't know what, so we're talking 2011, 2012. Everybody I knew that was getting into influencer marketing, into being a creator at the time, whether you were on the talent side or you were on the management side, was all Hollywood related. It felt like everybody who used to get a job as a waiter in order to break into Hollywood, all of a sudden figured out, well, what I can do is I can get on YouTube and start vlogging. I can start talking about my day. I can start playing games, and I can actually make better money doing that. And it gets me screen time and kind of exposure into what I really want to do, which is, acting or producing or directing. It seems like the actors all were, as usual, in front of the screen. They wanted to be on screen because they wanted talent acquisition folks to see them and put them in their next TV commercial, the next movie, whatever it was. And the people who were struggling, we won't call them failing, they were struggling to break into Hollywood to be the next Tarantino, seemed to be going on the marketing side, or they couldn't get a job at CAA, so they represented some talent, the Justines and Cnanners and Tobuscus and all those really early players all came from that world. They all came to LA for that purpose, and they found this new on-ramp.
So they sort of went from this is my running resume to
Right.
This is my gig. Right.
Right, exactly.
Is where we're at now.
They realized all of a sudden, whoa, I can do just as well doing this as being on traditional TV. Now, I think like everybody else, their parents said, "I'm sorry, what are you doing? Is that a real job?"
Right. I think some of our parents still ask us that question, regardless of the industry or what we do.
What do you do for a living? I play video games, Mom.
Right, exactly. So I guess that leads us pretty easily into our first kind of talking point, which is, now as new content creators are basically being created every day, what should a content creator in the current market be doing if they want to go full time? That's the holy grail now of content creators, is how do I do this as my thing? How do I make this my source of income, and how do I get the Lamborghini is the question.
How do I get the Lamborghini? Exactly. Only one? Well, you set your standard.
Today. It's early.
Today. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's part of the problem. Everybody thinks that they can. I think it's a can you, should you, and is it realistic? I think much like Hollywood, there are the level of people who end up being extras. There are the working actors who end up working, a nice full life, but they're no Brad Pitt. And then there's the one percenters who are Brad Pitt, LeBron James, in that level. And I think that's a lot where a lot of people struggle is, and I think it's just as true for Hollywood and sports, is they're the 1% for a very good reason. They're the 1%. The reality is, can you do it? Can you work on it? Can you work on your craft and turn it into something where you're putting your 40 hours a week in and you're able to make a living? I think absolutely. But it's a lot of work and there's a lot of risks. I mean, I think you guys are seeing it a lot, whether it's mental health issues and finding work-life balances. I know people who went to culinary school, worked in one restaurant, and then said, I want to cook at home, but I do not want to necessarily be on the line making 900 of the exact same salads every single night. I mean, I know you guys see that all the time, is folks who are streaming every single day. They're working their day job and they're trying to stream for 8 hours every single night. And they feel like they can't leave that. It's hard work. It's hard work. It takes organization. People don't realize how much support staff it takes for these full-timers now. I think that those days, what do you guys think? I think the day of a streamer or a YouTuber or any creator really being able to operate on their own is almost over. The level of work that they have to put in nowadays. I mean, the old days, the CNNers and Tobuscus, they did everything on their own. They shot it themselves. They edited themselves. They posted themselves. They were their own social channels. It seemed like there was a turn, 2017, 2018, when people started realizing, all right, I need to have an editor in another country. So that way, when I'm done shooting for the day, they're editing while I'm sleeping. And I've got the social media guy who's then going to go and take the edits the next morning and get them on all the right channels. It has become a complex world with its own cottage industries built into it. It's complex and difficult, and I think only getting more difficult for the casual entrant.
Right. No, I would agree 100%. Lindsay, you see it every day as a campaign manager. What do you think right now is probably the biggest challenge, both from, because I know you were talent for a little while. You streamed on Twitch for a while. From both sides of the fence.
Lindsay, she had a little bit of talent for a little while, but doesn't anymore. Is that what that was?
She decided she wanted to make 9,000 salads on the line. So she joined the dark side and came here.
I think we've seen a change in the landscape of social media and how content creators need to function within that space. Like, content creators can't exist solely on one platform anymore. They have to make sure they're staying with the newest trends, getting on the newest social media sites, promoting on those sites, repurposing their content. And it really does take an army to be able to do that sort of thing successfully and to continue to grow your own platform. And that's just something that a lot of content creators, I think, don't have at this point. And it's one of the make or break it when it comes to breaking into the top 1% of content creators.
It feels like that just the entry level the bar's risen on the entry level. I mean, I even see like fairly new, I'll call them, early career full-time TikTokers that are talking about the level of production required to pull off whether the duets or making something. The post-production process is becoming incredibly intense. I mean, I've seen some behind the scenes, some TikTokers talking about the hours they spent trying to perfect one of these dances to duet before the one that actually showed up on TikTok. So it's like they make it look like somebody's hopping on, dancing with the hot new Taylor Swift video, and off it went. When the reality, it was 6, 8, 10, 15 hours of dance rehearsals to do that one TikTok video. And they talk about the need to do 20 pieces of content a day. It's incredible the bar that's been raised.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it to me, it's really interesting because I can remember just a couple of years ago, Keith, you and I were telling the creative team, it's for social. You're not the next Tarantino. It doesn't have to look like it's ready to go up on the big screen, but now it does. Now that's exactly the look that these creators are trying to get.
Yeah, for a long time it was do it as quickly as possible and get it out there. But I think, with the trend, everything's a pendulum. Right now, the pendulum is swinging on Mr. Beast's side, which is all about high quality, very complex shoots, stunt videos, skit
Right.
videos, the dancing videos, everything has switched to a very high production value. Now, I'm sure it'll go back the other way again, but for now, it's making it incredibly tough to break through.
Definitely. I think one of the things, Lindsay, you and I talk about a lot is where is that tipping point as you're going through the process of figuring out where to be and how to be? Where's that tipping point where you can say, you know, I'm at X point in this journey and in this process. Now I need a editor. Now I need a manager. Now I need someone who can help me get to the next level. Where is that? And what are some of the pitfalls of getting there? I'll let Lindsay start and then Keith, you chime in.
No, I think it looks a little bit different for everybody when it comes to like content creators and deciding to take those steps. But one of the issues we're seeing is that there's really no playbook for when it is the right time for content creators to get a manager or get an agent, and there's really, I think, a lack of understanding for how some of these different persons can play a role in the success of a content creator. Sometimes we'll see, creators think, oh, I've gotten myself 20 average concurrent viewers on Twitch. Like the next big step for me is I need a manager to go out and help me get deals. But that's really not the right step yet, because some of these, agents and managers, like they could be predatory in a sense.
Oh, for sure.
So like content
100%.
creators really need to be aware of that and try and understand, like, is this the right step for me? How is this going to hurt me potentially financially if I do get deals? And sort of just really weighing their options. But then sort of at the same time, there is a financial component to all of this. How do you onboard an editor if you don't have that income stream to then support the editor's work? It's just not going to happen.
100%. Keith?
I think Lindsay hit it right on the head. It's like it's where's the cart and where's the horse? Do I keep my day job so that way I can hire an editor so that way I can have better quality videos? Even I think some Colin and Samir had a really great interview with Mr. Beast a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about in early videos he was spending more than he was getting for his early brand deals, and he looked at every single one of them as an investment. That I'm going to be in the negative for the next 2 years, and I'm going to do these other things to keep money coming in, and saw no results from it. He was getting brand deals. He'd get 5K, he'd get 10K, but he'd spend 15 or 20 on the video, and they were telling him you're absolutely nuts. But he went the route of I'm going to invest in this, and it's going to pay off in the long run. It's a gamble. I mean, he had to hope it was going to work, and I think Lindsay has a great point about managers and agents. They can help. The right one opens the doors to kind of get on that hockey stick to grow your revenue faster. It doesn't necessarily help you grow audience faster, but helps you grow revenue faster. But you've got to hope you pick the right one who's not just stealing you blind.
Right.
And like I think similar to other areas that where talent are involved, sports and Hollywood and that kind of thing. It's who it's did you get lucky enough to get someone who is what they say they are? Are the percentages they're taking reasonable? What are the rules it's all word of mouth. You have to hope you have a mentor that's helping you get through those bumps, because otherwise it's hard. It's just hard. It's hard, and like with a lot of these, it requires luck.
Yeah, I think the luck component is the piece a lot of creators early on miss. It's not guaranteed. Just because you're putting content out, it doesn't mean it's going to hit. It doesn't mean it's going to break for you. And I think my piece in all of this conversation, I think you're both 100% right. I've noticed a lot of conversation between creators where I feel like there's a misunderstanding of the manager talent relationship.
Right.
The manager is your employee as a creator. You have hired them in exchange for a percentage. You have hired them to do a job. And I see a lot of creators taking the point of they're working for their manager and getting paid for it. And that's
Right.
really a backwards view of the relationship. It's
Yeah.
entirely the other way. If your manager isn't working for you,
Right.
get another one.
That's that predatory side. You
Yeah.
know, those sharks that are trying to line up talent before they realize how good they are.
Right.
Those ones we need people to avoid. Instead, find somebody who's treating you more like, okay, you're the brilliant brain surgeon. I'm here, the manager. I'm going to help these things run smoothly so you can do what makes you great. You know,
Exactly.
that's how the good ones are supposed to work. But like with all industries that are getting a lot of attention, you get a lot of people in there to make a quick buck at some other young kid's expense who's just starting to break through.
Right now, there is a ridiculously low barrier of entry into the space. You can be a content creator for $100 or less, right? It's so simple. All you need is a halfway decent cam, a decent mic, and off you go, right? All the platforms are free for you to use, and they all promote that, hey, you do this little tiny thing to get this little piece of success, and we'll start putting money in your pocket. Everything after that, though, is so much more. It's a vertical wall, right? They give you this little ramp, and then there's this vertical wall 90 days later that everyone hits. How is that really low barrier to entry good for the industry, and how is it bad?
The good news is that everybody can do it as a hobby. That's the nice part of it. You can do it if you enjoy. You just want to connect with others. Like me, you like seeing yourself on the screen. You probably stare at yourself as much as you're going and looking at everybody else. So we get to make a fun hobby of it and laugh and build Legos or tell stories or whatever we want to do.
I feel very called out right now.
That's not my fault. But so many of them hit that wall 90 days later. They've been putting all this effort in, and yet they're not the brands aren't knocking down their door with 5-figure checks, and they get dejected.
Right.
Where most of the stories you hear are, I posted every day for 3 years to 2 people, and
Right.
then suddenly 3 years later, I finally did a video that for some reason I chose the right dance, I chose the right game, I chose the right whatever the trend was. I happened to release one at the right second, and 3 years of talking to the same 2 people, my mother and my girlfriend, who were nice enough to turn my stream on every day, finally became 300 people. They want it to happen in 90 days, and it might take 3 years. And their unwillingness to wait is it fair? It's expectations. It's hard. They see other people doing it. They want it to happen. They don't. It was the same thing. You used to be in radio.
Yep.
The people who thought a band was a one-hit wonder, and you suddenly came on. They're like, we've been touring in our van, smelling like In-N-Out, 90-day-old In-N-Out burgers for the last 3 years. What are you talking about? We just popped on the scene. We've been grinding away at this forever.
What's the old saying? It took me 15 years to become an overnight success.
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's the reality. And unfortunately, a lot of people who come in just don't respect that side. They either don't know or they don't respect it. And it's been true in every single talent-based industry before this. In sports and Hollywood and TV and all the others that are of this style. Music, they don't respect usually how much work that overnight success was.
Yeah.
Lindsay?
I think kind of like to your point, Keith, like people come into this space wearing almost like rose-colored glasses, and they underestimate what actually goes into being successful on these platforms, if that is the end goal and it's making it their career and their primary source of income.
Yeah.
I think the low barrier to entry is great because it's introduced a lot of, new creators who maybe wouldn't have had the opportunity to stream or create content prior. Like, heck, you can just pull up your cell phone and like start a live stream. That's incredible. But sort of with that, we're starting to see this oversaturation, and everybody and their mother is starting to create content. So that's just making it 10 times more competitive for creators out there who want to grow a platform. They have to be on top of all of the new trends. And like trends are getting faster and faster. We're seeing a turnover happen at rates that I don't think I've ever seen before in this industry. And I don't know about you two, but every week it's something new. And if content creators aren't on top of that, if they're not consuming content on these platforms and then taking it and thinking of how they can adapt and change, with the times, they're going to fall behind and they are not going to grow. So it really, does, I think, put this emphasis on creators that if they want to grow, they need to be the best of the best. They need to know as much as they can, and they need to be capitalizing on every new trend. And I think that it creates almost an unhealthy environment.
That's what I was going to say. It's like that requirement is what causes all the mental health issues that then happen, 3-5 years later.
Yeah.
Right.
On top of all your content being constantly scrutinized by everybody who sees it.
Oh yeah. 80% of the people who comment are going to say something negative, and that is the ugly side of it, and just the mental health aspects of dealing with that, because it's almost impossible to want to be a creator and want to be on the camera and then also hear people tell you, but don't read the comments.
I think it's funny you said, everyone and their mother, because that was actually a trend for a while, right? The trend was do the dance with your mom.
Right.
So it literally is everyone and their mother out there doing these things. I think the last few minutes here, I want to talk about a couple of things. First off, how does all of this impact brands in terms of finding creators that fit, that are actually going to produce for them?
I think it impacts brands a lot more than people might realize. Because there is such a low barrier to entry for people to come into the content creator space. I think there's also then at the same time a little bit of a lack of professionalism that then happens. A lot of people come into this maybe not expecting it to become anything, and then they find themselves with a massive following and this reach that brands want to tap into, and then they don't know how to manage those conversations. They don't know how to, review a contract, fulfill deliverables, and then follow up with these brands in the proper way. But
Right.
then sort of at the same time, like some of these creators get really excited at the prospect of a brand deal, and maybe they're not ready to understand whether or not it's a good fit for them.
And I'll take it from the brand side. A lot of them aren't experts in the field either. And what they see is they see somebody, in some article that is the hot new thing, and they immediately assume that that's the person they should have representing their brand. It is the new celebrity. The problem is that sometimes, not every creator, just like not every celebrity endorser, is right for your brand. They don't stand for the right things for you or their audience. Their audience isn't right for your product. Yet, because they are massively popular and getting a lot of press, brands think that they have to sign them immediately. And they do the same things they do with celebrities. They sign them for huge deals, and they get very little return on it because they were the wrong audience. They were the wrong personality. And then they have a bad taste in their mouth saying creators and influencers don't work because they jumped in. And I think to Lindsay's point, this is where, like in other industries, you'd never get that far without a manager because the systems are built that way. There's a certain level of protection. Rarely, it's not like the old days of Hollywood where the studio swooped you up before you got a manager and signed you to an abusive contract, which reminds me of the MCNs in the early influencer days, where they just signed them to very studio style contracts before they had representation that locked them into pennies on the dollar for what they were generating. But the brands do the same thing too. They have people, they see a shiny object and they jump right on it, not knowing what they're doing, and it makes a big mess, which makes it hard on all of us who are working in the industry, because then one bad decision is being blamed for a whole bunch of things that aren't relevant.
Right. 100%. And I think what you said, Keith, about, brands not fully understanding or thinking in old media ways about how these things are supposed to function is a really nice place to loop back to something I said at the beginning, where there was actual breaking news in this space as we were coming on to record this. And that was that the FTC announced lawsuits against Google and iHeartMedia for airing 29,000 deceptive endorsements by radio personalities. These are basically, Hey, I used the Google Pixel 4. It's great. I love it. The pictures I take are phenomenal, and I love using it as an organizer, and the calls are crystal clear. The thing is, Google never sent them a Pixel. They didn't have them. They were reading.
Read.
Yeah, they were doing rip and reads, which,
Yeah.
you can write script that is, hey, this
You can't say,
camera
"I
is
did it,
great.
though."
But when you say, I did this, that's
Right.
an endorsement, and that's different. And they settled for a total of almost $9.5 million in fines. There is genuine risk in doing things the wrong way in this space. And
Yeah.
it can cost you many more millions than the campaigns will ever bring in or the sales they'll ever generate. Let's talk about just real quickly the importance of making sure you get it right to disclose, number one, that these are in fact paid endorsements, and two, to disclose whether the person reading or making the commercial or making the content ever actually touched your product, which is a whole different form of concern than what we usually faced here.
Yeah.
With the way that it's currently laid out by the FTC, disclosures are sort of, at the end of the day, the responsibility of the brand. So if a brand hires a content creator to create a piece of content for them, or they send them a free PR package, they need to ensure that the content creator is following the proper guidelines and putting the proper disclosures on those, pieces of media. Because if they're not, then at the end of the day, the FTC is going to come knocking on the brand's door, and the brand is going to have to pay the fines. So when a brand is selecting a content creator to work with, they really need to make sure that those disclosures are clear and provide links to those resources if those content creators aren't aware of the kinds of disclosures that they need to be doing.
I mean, look how work we all do on that side of it's the paperwork side of it, making sure everybody
Right.
understands. Here are all the rules that you must. Here's your overlays, and here's your statements, and here's your chatbots.
Right.
Everything.
We build it into our contracts. Literally, here's the links to all of the FTC resources, what you're legally required to do. This is what we expect from you. And you're signing on the dotted line saying you will do these things.
Well,
And that
because
protects us and that protects the brand.
he's going to go after the deepest pocket. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh,
the
absolutely.
creator's going to get fined as well, but it's nothing in comparison to what the brand's going to get, because that's where the culpability always goes to. It always goes to the deepest pocket.
Right. You paid them to do and say this thing. Therefore, ultimately,
Your
it's
responsibility.
your decision.
Right.
100%. Guys, thank you so much, Keith. Thanks for taking the time. I know you're busy, especially midweek and heading into the holidays. We're all kind of crazy, but it was nice to sit down and record this and get some of our thoughts out there into the world. Really appreciate your time. We will let you go. We will call you again when we need you, which probably will be next week.
There we go. We'll do it
or in
again.
5 minutes when we run into a problem with disclosures. One or the other.
Absolutely. All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you very
guys.
much. Lindsay, thanks for being a fantastic co-host today. It's really great to be able to sit down and have these conversations. And hopefully it helps some of you who are listening kind of sort through some of the questions you may have been having about the who, what, why, and when of influencer marketing and becoming an influencer, and some of the challenges you may face. That will wrap us up for this week. Lindsay, parting thought?
Stay happy.
Stay happy. All right, everyone, stay happy. Thank you for listening. Have a great rest of your week.